What role do you see for video as a piece of a company's communication strategy as we continue to evolve into the future of work?
Well, I think the role of video is really just expanding more and more. The past couple of years has kind of forced a lot of these companies to play in that space. Whereas before it was kind of a nice to have, it became a must have, especially as now you're seeing this change in how we work, how we collaborate virtually. And, for us as a company, we started in Australia about 7 years ago, and that market's very different. If you think about work in that at that sort of time, a lot of your meetings are face to face, and you're going into the office and all that sort of stuff. And then moving to the U.S. market, they're much more used to working remotely because of the geography. And
Mm.
so now everyone's kind of on this more even playing field with hybrid work situations. And so you look at how these businesses are trying to drive connection with their employees and get their message across. Video is only becoming more prevalent, be it things like Zoom calls or just video content, short form messages from leadership to get the word out there. And so we're seeing a lot of video replace written communications.
Right, and that makes sense, right? Because if an image is worth 1,000 words, then a video, I mean, how do you even calculate that?
Someone has done the math on that. Someone has done the math on that. Frame rates and all that sort of fun stuff. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too when we look at again just how we interact with one another and how that's evolved over the past few years. And so if we think about like our social interactions going into an office, it supplemented our work life, right? That's part of the experience. You take that away, and then you kind of have everyone just executing at their home. You're missing that like personal aspect of it. And I think that's again now where these companies are looking at like how do we bring some of that back in a virtual environment. So not only we think about executive communications, if you will, leadership communications around video, but also peer-to-peer video as well. I was even on a call with a friend of mine recently who works for a large SaaS company, and he was saying, yeah, we were just using so much asynchronous video, like replacing email with just video messages. And I was like,
Mhm.
that makes sense just to kind of drive relationship and connection.
Right. And so kind of follow on question to that, like in your opinion, is there a sweet spot for leveraging asynchronous video in particular, right? Like with let's say use case with a prospect, like do you think like should it be used all the time? Should it be used as an opener? Like how do you view that balance?
Such a good question. All the time, make a video for everything. No, don't do that. Don't. There
Yeah.
is such a thing as overkill. You'll actually lose your audience that way because they'll be like, oh, well, now another video from Chad.
Yeah.
So it is about being smart and how you're placing that. So sometimes a written message is more effective depending on where in the relationship. So if it's a quick little, like, here's one sentence, I think if you're trying to explain a concept, or let's say, for example,
Mhm.
trying to really pitch your service or your platform or what you do and the value that you bring, video is really good for that because not only are you tying the story and the information, but you're pairing it with the visuals, which helps make it more memorable, right? And so even when you're thinking about maybe something that is more of a complex idea, if you were just to write that down, and there's studies around this, it's like you retain what, 10% of something like that. But if you bring a story or visuals or video around to it, that increases to around 95%. And
Wow.
so I think that's the goal there is when you think about here's the different touch points I have across the customer journey. Where do I need to make sure that they have a piece of information that is easy to digest, but is also shareable? So we'll use it in, maybe a little bit further into the relationship, not necessarily the first point of contact all the
Mhm.
time, but you've seen a couple of emails from me and then you get a video, you put a face to the name, humanizes the relationship. You go, okay, this is a real person now. It's not an automated email message. You want to personalize that experience as well. So it's not just a generic video that you send to everybody.
Mhm.
That kind of just becomes noise. And
Yeah.
then you think about, okay, what else through that nurture process? Where else do I need to have maybe another story to bring? Maybe it's a customer testimonial in there. Maybe it is a platform walkthrough as well. Let me show you the technology and it's a quick,
Mhm.
screen share. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate video.
Yeah. So it's helpful to hear, especially that maybe it's not necessary to start with that video moment, right? Like you can kind of warm people to that as well. But I would imagine like it really depends so much on the context and if you've met that person before and all that. But
Yeah, I would say if you wanted to get into the nitty gritty of it, if we were talking about pure sales plays here, we would recommend probably your first 2 or 3 touch points are going to be, email, text based, because most people are not engaging with it,
Right.
right? So they're going to see it in their inbox. Okay, great. I'm
Yeah.
trying to just create some association between my name, a little bit of a brand thing, and then in that third touch point, I might go, and here's a video, and they go, okay, well, it's not out of the blue. I already know this guy. Maybe I've reached out on LinkedIn, that type of thing.
Right.
The other part of that play too is we're talking about, direct relationship with video, but also what kind of content are you putting out all the time?
Right.
So if you think about, again, the holistic experience for that prospect or customer, maybe they've seen some of the videos that, I've done on LinkedIn. So they're like, okay, I have a bit of an exposure to this person. Now he's in my inbox. Okay, that message, yeah, that sounds interesting. Oh, now he's made me a video. Okay, now I'm a little bit more engaged. I'm leaning forward. I'm pressing play. Oh, he made me a specific video. Oh,
Yeah.
he's actually done his research. So what you're doing is creating, again, a little bit more relational equity there that hopefully results in, yeah, let's have a conversation.
Yeah, I love that relational equity. And I do, one of the things that I think you said the first time that I heard from you, which was in a webinar with Sales Hacker, I think.
Mhm.
And you had said the humanistic power of video, right? And having a layered approach, knowing when you can add that to really drive that connection further is really powerful, right? When you think about it. So the last question actually is more from almost an enablement perspective, right? So if let's say that I'm a professional and I'm really trying to get on board with this video stuff, but I just feel kind of inauthentic or awkward or like just downright terrified of recording myself on video and then imagining sending it to someone. So like what would your advice be to help people feel a little more natural, a little more comfortable on video?
I mean, let's be honest. Eventually, AI is just going to take care of all of this, and we'll just have deep fake versions of ourselves. We'll never have to be on camera again,
Right.
so it'll be totally fine. No, I think it's something that we come against quite a bit, right? It's a little bit of a change management piece. I think we all got used to being in front of camera over the past couple of years, but then there's also a fatigue around it, and especially when you think like it's a different stake when we're on a Zoom call versus a video that's kind of living forever on the internet, essentially. So that's where we kind of say, look, practice makes perfect. Your first, 10, 20 videos are probably not going to be your best. And that's okay. You don't have to send them to anybody.
Mm.
But once you kind of give yourself some guidelines, be it using a teleprompter or even just kind of sticky note talking points underneath your camera just to keep you on track, you're going to get a lot more comfortable with it. And so when we work with kind of the organizations that we work with and sales presentation training or video presentation training, we're looking at things like comfortability on camera, like the energy that you bring, what's your facial expressions like. So be honest, like first video you do, you may just be like a deer in the headlights and just read a script and, totally don't send that video to anybody. It's like, that's just practice. But how are you using hand gestures? How are you emoting on camera? Because that's what's going to be important when you're thinking about driving connection with the audience, with whoever's viewing that. And so are you creating an environment or an experience that invites conversation? Does someone watch that video and go, oh, yeah, that guy seems like he knows what he's talking about, or I feel like there's a trust there. It's not going to be a sleazy sales conversation. It's really just like human to human connection, again, resulting in getting on a real-time, video chat and then going through the rest of the process from there. So just to sum it up, I would say practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Just rehearse for yourself, do a bunch of videos that no one sees, and you're going to get more comfortable over time.
Yeah, love that. I heard a term the other day. We all know practice makes perfect, but I also heard that like it's the diligence of the practice that can really unlock whatever it is that we're going for in terms of our goals, right? Perfect is the wrong word.
Yeah.
Like that's not really what we're trying to achieve, but intentionally practicing, becoming more aware of some of the things that we may do. Of course, my sweet spot's the world of nonverbals, right? So you mentioned some of our favorite topics at Virtual Sapiens, that like hand gestures, body posture, facial expressions, right? And a lot of these things can become a little paralyzed the first few times. So it's about getting comfortable with that intentional practice. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chad, for sharing your thoughts. Again, many professionals really just turned the video on during the pandemic, and now we're realizing we actually have an opportunity here. So it's really helpful to hear your thoughts.
Well, thanks for having me, Rachel. I really enjoyed it.